Chapter 34 of Jin Ping Mei Chongzhen version of the embroidered portrait. Offering fragrant bottles to beg for favors in the inner room, accepting private bribes, and talking about things in court. The word says, Cheng Wu Yu. How can he be forbidden to use clever words to fight spies? Giving warmth and stealing coldness in vain. Giving warmth and stealing coldness in vain. Moving lips and tongue violently. The crystal pill can't be skimmed, and it can't be dipped in with a spade. It is said that Han Daoguo went to the door of his house to inquire and saw his wife and his brother Han are tied up in the shop. He hurriedly walked to the shop to discuss the plan with Lai Bao. Lai Bao said, "You should have told Uncle Ying Ying a long time ago. If you tell the head of the house, take a note, and tell Father Li in the county, no matter how big the problem is, it will be over." This Han Daoguo actually came to Ying Pingju's house. His wife sent the girl out and said, "No one is home. I don't know where they went. I'm afraid it's at Daddy Ximon's house." Han Daoguo said, "Not in his house." When Ying Bao followed him out, Han Daoguo panicked and went to Gulan courtyard to search for him. It turns out that the earl was invited by He Manzi, the brother of He Manzi and Hu Zhou, called He Liangfang, to have a drink at He Jinchener's house in Cityao Lane. "I was caught by Han Daoguo. Please come out." The count's face was red from eating, and he had a toothpick stuck in the brim of his hat. Han Daoguo sang Nai, took him to a quiet place, and told him this. The earl said, "Since this is the case, I must accompany you." So he left He Liangfeng and went home with Daoguo first, where he asked about the situation. Daoguo Yang said, "I'm afraid this matter will be resolved in the county tomorrow. I just hope that my second uncle will go to the official residence to talk about it, and ask for a message. Please pass it on to Father Li and ask him not to teach your nephew. See the official. After everything is done, I would like to thank my second uncle." After saying that, he knelt on the ground. The earl pulled him up with his hands and said, "Xianqi, why don't I take care of these things for you? Write a note quickly and throw away all the gossip. Just say that you are often not at home and are often beaten by the bachelors in the neighborhood." He plundered the tiles and bullied his wife. Your brother Honor was so angry that he yelled with him. Instead, he was trapped by this group of people, grabbed, kicked and beaten, and tied up in the shop. I hope the government will send a message to Mr. Li. I just don't teach you how to be an official. And just take care of the situation. Han Daoguo took a pen and inkstone, quickly wrote a note, and put it in his sleeve. The earl led him to the front of the Ximen King gate and asked the gatekeeper Ping En'er, "Dad at home?" Ping En said, "Dad is in the garden study. Second father and Uncle Han, please come in." The earl's dog didn't bite, and he was familiar with it. Yes. Tong Han Daoguo entered the yamen, turned around the hall, and entered through the looting mountain, which is the garden corner gate. After the wood incense shed, there are 3 small rolling sheds, called Jade Pavilion, which are the places where Ximen enjoys the cool weather during the summer months. The front and back curtains are closed, and the flowers and bamboos on all sides are gloomy. Inside there is a light and to dark study room. There was a boy sweeping the floor there, saying, "Yinger's father and Uncle Han are here." The two opened the curtain. Entering the bright room, the book boy saw him and said, "Please sit down. My father went to the back just now." At the same time, he asked the painting boy to go. Hua Tunger walked to the Golden Lotus room at the back and asked, "Sister Chun Mai, is Dad here?" Chun Mai scolded, "What the hell, little slave? Isn't Dad in Liu Niang's room next door? He came here to ask." The painting boy walked by and saw Zhu Chun sitting on the stone platform. He asked quietly, "Is Dad in the room?" "Yinger, Dad and Uncle Han are here. They are waiting for Dad to talk in the study." Zhu Chun said, "Dad is in the room, watching Mother and Brother cutting clothes." It turned out that Ximen King took out a pair of rulers, a piece of red silk, and a piece of parrot green silk, and taught Li Pinger to cut a sweater for Brother Guan, coats, vests, head protectors, etc. There are red felt strips spread on the kang. The breasts are holding the brother, and the spring is clinging to the iron. Shu Chun came in and quietly pulled Yingxun. Yingxun said, "Why did you pull me?" The fire left the pull and fell on the felt strip. Li Pinger asked, "Why did you pull him for nothing?" Chun said, "The painting boy said that Ying's second father is here. Please speak to him." Li Pinger said, "Little slave, Ying's second father is here. You just come in and say it." and you'll rip him off." Simon King told the painting boy, "Please sit down, father, and I will come." Then, after finishing cutting the clothes, Plainclothes came out and saw the two counts in the study. They bowed and sat down, and Han Daoguo stood up. After having tea, the Earl said, "Brother Han, if you have anything to say, please tell your official." Simon King said, "What do you have to say?" Han Daoguo was about to say, "There are some unknown gangsters in the neighborhood." He was stopped by Earl Ying and said, "My dear nephew, don't you say that. It's not a problem to have bones and bald flesh exposed. When your family's official residence is here, just open the back door more and say, 'Han, the eldest brother, often sleeps in this shop, and there is no one at home except his wife and a child. There are a few unscrupulous people in the neighborhood. When no one is at home, they often go around breaking bricks and looting tiles.'" The bully got so bad that his younger brother Han couldn't stand it, so he came home and cursed a few times. The bachelor couldn't help but blame him, so he ganged up and beat him to death. Now he is tied up in the shop, and he will be released tomorrow morning and go to Lee in this county. "Sir, go there. He is crying and asking me to come and tell my brother to ask for a favor and to tell Mr. Lee that he has a bright eye. It is normal to have him as my younger brother. I just don't want him to be promoted to official, because he said, 'Take out the message and show it to your officials, so that I can send someone to go for you.'" Han Daoguo took it out from his sleeve, knelt down quickly and said, "I am here at my father's door." Father Wanshi thought that Uncle Ying was in favor, so he condescended to him, which is unforgettable for the whole family. Simon King held up his hand and said, "Please get up." Then he looked at the post, which read, "The King of Convict Women." Mr. Simon King said, "This post is not written like this. It's just your brother Honor." Xiang Earl said, "I will tell the county with the post at the time. Why not I just ask the local government to change the declaration form and just bring it to my Yemen tomorrow?" The Earl taught, "Brother Han, why don't you bow to Father and it's all good now." Then Han Daoguo fell over again. "Kowtow and go down." Simon King taught Dan, "Hurry up and call a squad leader who has agreed to come outside." After a while, he called a section leader in Singyi to wait on him. Simon King came forward and ordered, "Go to the Han shop's residence on Nupi Street and ask where the shop is. Tell Bo Jia, call him my Junyu and order Wang to be released immediately. Find out those bachelors came and changed their names, and they will be presented to the criminal court tomorrow morning, and I will hear the trial in my Yemen." The section chief agreed, took the words and went out. The Earl said, "Brother Han, just follow him and go do your business. I will talk to the high officials." Han Daoguo thanked him and went out, and went to Nupi Street with his superiors to work. Simon King sat down with the Earl in the Jade Pavilion and ordered Dai to set the table. "Go and tell your aunt that the osmanthus and lotus wine sent by Eunuch Liu from the brick factory yesterday was opened and sifted. Uncle Ying and I ate it, so the bad shad has been steamed." The Earl raised his hand and said, "Brother, I haven't thanked you yet. Yesterday, Brother Ming gave me those two good Crucian carps. I sent one to my brother and left one to the room opposite," he said. He split it with a knife, gave one piece to his daughter, and cut the rest into narrow pieces. He used the old red grains to grow them, stirred some sesame oil, and put them in a porcelain jar. I kept them for the morning, one night for dinner, or when a guest comes. Steaming a plate and serving it will not be in vain to live up to my brother's hospitality." Simon King told, "Eunuch Liu's brother Liu Bai, who is in charge of the reed field under the river, I earned a few taels of silver and bought a new Zhuangzi store in Wuli. I built a house with real wood. Recently, the officer in my Yemen heard about it and committed suicide. According to Jia Longxi, I gave him 100 taels of silver. I still need to use my capital to send it to Shengsing Provincial Court." Eunuch Liu panicked and came to me with 100 taels of silver in person. He repeatedly asked me to ask for help, as long as it was done. To tell you the truth, our family is doing some small business. The material has passed. How rare is he to have such money? Eunuch Kwang Liu interacts with me on weekdays and often accepts some courtesy from him. Today, because of these things, he has become thin-skinned again. He taught me not to accept him at all, but only taught him to clean up the house. They dismantled it overnight. When I went to the government office, I only beat his family member Liu Sanwen and then let him go. After the incident, eunuch Liu couldn't be sentimental. He slaughtered a pig and gave me a jar of homemade lotus wine and 2 bags of bad anchovies, weighing 40 kilograms, and 2 pieces of gold satin embroidered with flowers. I came to express my gratitude in person. We have the light to see each other, and we are in love. The Earl said, "Brother, do you want this money?" Lord Xia. He was born in the army and established himself in the army. There is nothing on the ground. How can he live without a few things? Brother, since you took office, how many things have you asked him about? Simon King said, I also asked him about a few official matters. Other than that, what's the point? I only ate his greed. He didn't care about anything and just let the money go in his hand. What's the point? I resisted over and over again. Although you and I are military officials, we hold this punishment. It would be better if you show some dignity. Without further ado, the wine and food arrived. Simon King poured lotus wine into a small golden chrysanthemum cup and ate it with the Earl. If we don't talk to each other, we will just sit and relax. Let's talk about that group of people. When they saw King Yiji going down to the place, they let the woman Wang go home, arrested the general, checked everyone's names, and asked the criminal court for questioning tomorrow morning. Everyone looked at each other. It turns out that Han Daoguo is a clerk of Simon King's family. He is looking for his son, Honor, who is the only one left in the shop. Everyone said that this matter was not done well. Han Daoguo also gave another 5 taels of silver at the festival level. He checked the names on the time Baojia and sent them to Simon King's house, waiting for them to be released early the next day. 1 day later, 2 officials, Simon King and Jia Tixing, went to the Yamen to sit in the hall. Baojia brought people to the place, and Honor was kneeling at the head. Jia Tixing first read the report. Xiao Cheng, the general manager of the 4 shops in Naiubi Street, is causing trouble in the local area. The first one is called Honor, the second is Che Dan, the third is Guan Shiquan, and the fourth is Yu Shu, the third Haoxian. They all called her by her name. Then he asked Honor, "Why are you up?" Then Honor first told him, the younger brother is a businessman and often lives away from home. The young boys and girls were beaten by Hubo's poems by the bachelors in the neighborhood, and sat at the door. He sang wild tunes with Hu's songs, played bricks at night, and bullied him in every possible way. The younger one lived elsewhere and came to visit his elder brother. He couldn't bear it and cursed him a few times. He was dragged to the ground without explanation by this group of thugs, and kicked and beaten randomly. Is under the master's case. I hope the master will investigate the case. Jia Tixing asked. What do you say? The group of people all told, Master, don't believe that he is right. He is a troublemaker who plays money. His brother doesn't at home. He had an affair with his sister-in-law Wang. Wang usually destroys the neighborhood by showing off his tricks. Yesterday, he was caught by the gang, and there was evidence of his underwear. Jia Tixing asked Baojia Xiao Cheng. What about Wang? Why are you missing? How could Xiao Cheng be released at the provincial level? He just said, Wang has small feet and can't walk on the road. So come here. Honor was below, looking only at Simon King. For a long time, Simon King leaned over and looked at Jia Tixing and said, Sir, there is no need for this Wang family. I think Wang family must have some beauty. And this bachelor came to tease him but failed, and he set up this trap, because he called the leader Che Dan to come up and asked where did you catch Han Erlei. The crowd said, we caught him in his house yesterday. He then asked Honor, who are you? Mrs. Wang. Baojia said, you are his sister-in-law. He also asked Baojia, where did this group of people get into his house? Baojia said, go over the wall and get in. Simon King was furious and cursed. I'll make you a bachelor, since he is his uncle. Wang also has. Are you not allowed to walk in the house? A bachelor like you. Who are you? How dare you jump over the wall and get in? Besides, the man is not here. And there is a young girl in the room. She is either raped or stolen. He ordered to take it from left to right. The sticks came, each with 20 sticks. The skin and flesh were torn open and blood flowed out. Moreover, 4 or 5 of them were young boys. They had not been tortured after being born as twins, and they were all beaten until their wails moved the heavens, and their moans filled the ground. Simon King did not wait for Jia Tixing to speak. and ordered, "Honor, go out and wait. Take all 4 of them into prison with me, and we will collect confessions for questioning soon." When the 4 of them went to prison, they complained to each other, and all of them had evil intentions. The people in prison all frightened him. "If you ask questions, you will all be guilty. When you go to other prefectures and counties, you will all be dead." These people panicked and waited for the servants to come to deliver food and send a message out. Teach everyone's father and brother how to use money, and look for favors from top to bottom. Among them were Naran Xingyang and Jia Tixing. Jia Tixing said, "This Wang's husband is a clerk of your father Simon. He is twisting in the middle to ask questions. Colleagues come in, and I am not in a good position. I need to find a favor and talk to him." Uncle Yang Wu also came forward to say it. Everyone knows that Simon King's family is rich and they don't dare to manage it. The fathers and brothers of the 4 families were all in a panic, and they were all in one place. One of them said, "There is no need to ask Wu Qianhu, and he won't obey. I heard people say that the eldest brother Ying and the 2 brothers of the open silk and silk shop living on East Street have a close relationship with him. Why don't we put together a few dozen details of silver, Feng and Yinger, teach him to speak for us, and take good care of things." So Che Dan's father, Che Lauer, who owns a hotel, headed by Mr. Che, each brought 10 taels of silver, and a total of 40 taels of silver was collected. We all went to Earl Ying's house and asked him to tell Simon King. The count accepted it and sent everyone away. His wife then said, "You have done your best for Mr. Han and manipulated this group of people. So how can you take this money and make it convenient for him so as not to offend Mr. Han?" The Earl said, "I know it's hard to say. I don't have your own place." He exchanged 15 taels of silver, put it in his sleeve, and arrived at Simon King's house early. Simon King hasn't come back yet. When the count entered the hall, he saw a book boy coming out of the study in the west wing. He was wearing a corrugated hat and a gold-hatted lotus petal hairpin. He was wearing Suzhou silk straight pants, jade-colored gauze, and sandals and socks. He said, "Second father, please take a seat at the guest table." He handed Hua Tunger behind to get some tea and said, "Little boy, I'll ask you to bring tea to second father. You don't move and just play tricks. Wait until father comes home. Let's see." I said no. The boy went to get the tea. The Earl then asked, "Your father's office has not come home yet?" The boy said, "I promised to come just now. He said that my father's office has been dismissed and I went to see my father Jia." "What did the second father say?" The Earl said, "Nothing to say." The boy said, "Second father told me about Mr. Han the day before yesterday. My father went to the Yamen yesterday and beat up all those people and put them in prison. I will interrogate him tomorrow when I do the paperwork." The Earl took him to a quiet place. He said to him, "Now it's another thing." The family members of that group were like this. When they heard that they were going to ask questions, they were scared. Last night, they came to my house and cried. They knelt down and begged me again and again, saying to your father, "I think I've spoken for Mr. Han first. So how can I control him? Isn't it strange that Mr. Han is offended? I have no choice but to teach him to go round with these 15 taels of silver, to see how you can take advantage of him. Tell your father. What do you think? Just let him go." He took out some silver from his sleeve and handed it to the boy. The book boy opened it and looked at it. The size was for ingots and for pieces. He said, "Since I have agreed to the second father's share, I asked him to get another 5 taels. I will wait for the younger one to say it for him. I don't know if my father will agree to it." Yesterday, Uncle Wu came to tell my father in person, but he refused. The little one will not agree. Face. What a big face. To tell the truth to my second father, instead of using this money alone, I broke some bills and conveyed it to Liu Niang, who knew my biological brother, and told him in a roundabout way that he was killed. This matter, the Earl said, "In that case, wait for me to tell him. You should be considerate for him, and he will come back later to ask for answers." The book boy said, "I don't know how early Dad came home. You can teach him to come early tomorrow." After that, the Earl went. The scholar took the silver to the shop. Liu came with 1 or 2.5 cents, and bought a jar of Jinhua wine, to roast ducks, to chickens, 1 cent of silver for fresh fish, 1 cubit of hoof, and 2 cents of top. The crisp-crusted Pop-Tarts and rolled rolls worth 1 penny were sent to Lake Singeras' house, and his wife Wixu was asked to sort them out for him and arrange them properly. That day, Pan Jinlian was not at home. She had been riding a sedan to Grandma Pan's house outside the door to celebrate her birthday since morning. The book boy asked the painting boy to take the rice into Li Ping's room in a square box, and then bring a jar of Jinhua wine in. Li Pinger asked, "Where is it from?" The painting boy said, "It's the book boy who sent it to me to be filial to my mother." Li Pinger smiled and said, "Prisoner, how can he be filial to me?" After a long time, the book boy came in. I saw Pinger on the golden king bed, leading the tortoiseshell cat to play with her brother, because he said, "Prisoner, who do you give these things to eat?" The book boy just laughed. Li Pinger said, "How can you say smile when you don't speak?" The boy said, "You are not filial to your mother. Who should you be filial to?" Li Pinger said, "Prisoner, you are a good person. How can you be filial to me? If you don't explain it clearly, I won't eat it." The boy opened the wine and put the vegetables on the small table. He taught Yingxun to take some silver and sift it, poured the wine into the bowl, handed it over with both hands, knelt down and said, "Mom has eaten it, and the younger one will tell her to her later." Li Pinger said, "Whatever happens to you, I won't eat until you tell me. If you don't tell me, you will kneel down for 100 years, and I won't eat either." He then said, "You get up and talk." The boy then told the story from the beginning about the 4 people that Earl Ying had asked him to do. He said it for Mr. Han first. It's not easy to talk about it, so Young and the younger one came to tell mother first. When dad asks, don't say it's the story of the little one. Just pretend to be the messenger on the other end of Uncle Hua. The little one wrote a message in the study room in front. He just said that it was my mother who told me to tell the little one, so I can tell my father. Mom added one more nice words. Besides, his father had already beaten him in the Yemen yesterday. He just cut him off randomly and let him go. It was also the boss's fault. Li Pinger smiled and said, "So it's the same thing. Don't worry. Wait for your father. Come home. I'll just tell him. What are you doing with all these things?" He then said, "Prisoner, you must have asked him to give away some things." The book boy said, "To tell you the truth, he gave away something. The small one is only 5 taels of silver." Li Pinger said, "Prisoner, you are really good at arranging a shop to make money." So instead of eating the small bell, Chuanjiao Yingxun took out a large silver flower cup and ate 2 bells first, and then poured a cup back to eat with the book boy. The boy said, "I don't dare to eat it. I will blush immediately after eating it. I am afraid that my father will come and see me." Li Pinger said, "I will reward you with it. What's wrong with you?" Then he kowtowed and drank. Li Pinger put all kinds of rice on a plate and taught him to eat it. The boy drank 2 large cups with him, but he didn't dare to eat for fear of blushing, so he came out. When we got to the front shop, half of the snacks and rice were left, which were placed on the counter. I also made 2 jars of wine and invited Mr. Fu, Bai Si, Chen Jingji, Lai Xing'er, and Dianer. Everyone was stunned and completely devoured. I forgot to teach Pingener to eat. Pingener sat at the head of the gate with his mouth wet. Unexpectedly, Simon King paid homage to the guest from outside the door the afternoon after the appointment, and did not say anything when he saw Pingen. When the book boy heard the shouting, he panicked and couldn't stop. He took 2 or 3 steps to the hall to pick up clothes from Simon King. Simon King asked, "No one is here today?" The boy said, "No one." Simon King took off his clothes, took off his hat, put on his scarf, walked to the study and sat down. The book boy took a cup of tea and handed it to him. Simon King took a sip and put it down. Seeing that his face was red, he asked, "Where are you coming to have a drink?" The boy took out a piece of paper from under the inkstone on the table and showed it to Simon King, and the younger one said it was sent by Uncle Hua to talk about the car and other matters. Liu Niang taught the younger one to take it away and look at it with his father. Because he gave the younger one a glass of wine, he blushed without thinking. Simon said, King read the post and wrote, "There are 4 prisoners in the car, begging for a green eye." After reading it, he handed it to the book boy and said, "Put it in my bookcase and report it to me at the Yemen. Tomorrow if you agree." He took the face and put it in the bookcase, then walked beside it and stood there. Simon King saw that his face was red and white after drinking, and his lips were red and full of glutinous rice teeth. How could he not love him? So lustful thoughts rose, and they hugged each other, kissing and smacking their tongues. The young man was sipping fragrant tea and osmanthus this cake, and his body was fragrant. Simon King lifted up his clothes with his hands, took off his floral pants, and touched his butt, because he told him, "Don't drink too much, I'm afraid it will make you look bad." The boy said, "Father told me." "I know." The two of them were doing something in the room. Suddenly, a man in green clothes rode a horse to the front of the gate, jumped off the horse, bowed to the gatekeeper Ping, and asked, "Is this the home of Simon King's father who is asking for punishment?" Ping didn't invite him because the boy was not invited. Kai Dongdao, pouting his lips, was so angry that he refused to agree for a long time. The man just stood there and said, "I am sent by Mr. Zhou from the handsome mansion to send a post to Mr. Simon for reading. Tomorrow we will camp at Shinping village, and I will have to see him off. We will serve wine at Yangfu Temple. There is also Mr. Jingdu supervisor, Mr. Jia, who is in charge of punishment, and Mr. Zhang in the camp. Each contributes one tale. I came to report, and Brother Lyman reported in. The villain is still waiting for a reply." Ping and Fang took his post and entered it. From behind, I found out that Simon King was in the garden study. He walked inside, turned around the pine wall, and saw a painting boy sitting on the pedestal outside the window. He waved his hand when he saw Ping En. Then it was safe to know that Simon King and a book boy were doing something that was not urgent, and quietly walked under the window to listen. For half a day, I heard the sound of people shouting and squatting on the ground. Simon King shouted, "My son, straighten your body and don't move." He didn't hear anything for a long time. I saw the book boy coming out and scooping water with Simon King to wash their hands. When I saw Ping En and Hua Tunger standing under the window, I blushed and took them to the back. Ping En took the post and Simon King read it, took out the strokes to understand, and said, "I'll ask your second mother for a tale of silver later, and teach your brother-in-law to seal it and pay it to him." Ping En agreed. The boy brought water, and Simon King finished washing his hands and returned to Li Pinger's room. Li Pinger then asked, "Do you want to drink wine? Teach the girl how to sift the wine and you can eat it." Simon King saw a jar of Jinhua wine under the table and asked, "Where is it from?" Li Pinger couldn't say it was a scholar who bought it. He just said, "I wanted to have some wine for a while, so I sent the boy to buy this jar of wine on the street. I only ate it for 2 minutes before I was too lazy to eat it." Simon King said, "There is wine in front, and you buy it with money. The day before yesterday, I gave Ding Manzi 40 tangs of steak on credit, and threw it in the West Wing. When you want to eat, teach the boy to get the key." Li Pinger still has his head. The 1 plate of roast duck, 1 plate of chicken, and 1 plate of fresh fish were left untouched. Zhao Yingshan ranged for plates of side dishes, cut a plate of smoked meat, put down the table, and drank wine with Simon King in the room. Simon King didn't even ask where the rice came from. It can be seen that the family used it on weekdays and ate this kind of food every day. While Simon King was drinking, he remembered and asked Li Pinger, "Does the post the boy at the head took out belong to you and him?" Li Pinger said, "Uncle Hua outside the door came to tell you to spare those people. Come on." Simon King said, "Uncle Wu came to me the day before yesterday and I didn't agree. If not, I would have sent him to question this bachelor. Since it is his share, I will go to the Yamen tomorrow and beat him and let him go. That's it." Li Pinger said, "Why beat him again?" The female teeth exposed and his mouth were exposed. "What does it look like?" Simon King said, "The Yamen is this kind of Yamen. I don't care whether his female teeth are female or not. Also, you are more delicate than him." Li Pinger said, "My brother, as a criminal official, it is convenient for you to go out with people in the morning and evening. You are also a yin. Don't worry about anything else. I just want to save your children." Simon King said, "What can you say?" Li Pinger said, "Tomorrow, you should beat less people and make do with others. That is not a place to accumulate good fortune." Simon King said, "Business matters, it's a pity that I don't love you." While the two were drinking, Chen Mai opened the curtain and came in. Seeing Simon King Zheng and Li Pinger drinking wine with their legs crossed, he said, "You always enjoy the good wine. Don't we want to send a boy to pick up my mother tonight?" Only Lianer followed the sedan. We're across the street from each other, so I'm afraid I'll be late. But don't worry. Seeing his disheveled flower crown and fluffy mustache, Simon King said with a smile on his face, "Little oily mouth, I guess you're going to sleep." Li Ping'er said, "You jumped up with a sweat towel on your head, and you didn't pull it down." Yin asked him, "It's so sweet, Jinhua wine." "You eat, Zhong'er," Simon King said. "You eat. I will send the servant to pick you up, mother. Go." Na Chunmai put one hand on the table and put on her shoes, because she said, "I just woke up, feeling bad and too lazy to eat." Simon King said, "Can't you see, the little greasy mouth eats so little?" "Wine," Li Ping'er said. "Your mother is not here today. Why are you afraid of eating for an hour?" Chunmai said, "Liu Niang, you drink by yourself. I don't want to eat. My mother is not at home." "What's wrong at home? Even if my mother is at home and she gets impatient when I see her, I won't eat even if she asks me to." Simon King said, "If you don't want to eat, just have a sip of tea. I'll call a boy in front of Yingchun. Pick up your mother." He handed him the cup of osmanthus, sesame, and smoked bamboo shoot tea that he was eating. The spring plum seemed to be nothing. I caught it in my hand, took a sip, and then put it down. Said, "Don't teach Yingchun to call you. I have already called Ping'er here. He is still older." Simon King called Ping'er through the window. The boy responded, "Young one, I'm here to serve you." Simon King said, "You've gone. Who will look after the gate?" Ping'er said, "Young one has entrusted the chess boy to the door." Simon King said, "Since then. So, just grab a lantern and take it." Ping'er then took a lantern to greet Pan Jinlian. Halfway there, I saw Lianer coming from the south following the sedan. It turned out that the two were familiar sedan bearers, one named Zhang Chuanayer and the other named Wei Kong'er. He walked forward and grabbed the sedan bearer with his hand and said, "The little one is here to pick up my mother." Jinlian called Ping'er and asked, "Did your father ask you to come to pick me up?" "Who asked you to come?" Ping'er said. "Yes, Dad sent me here to help you. It was my sister who sent me to pick up my mother." Jinlian said, "Your father must have not come home from the Yemen." Ping'er said, "Didn't come home. I paid homage to someone outside the door, and he has been there since noon. Come home. We have good food and wine in Liu Niang's room." If Sister Zhuan hadn't called Xiaowen and urged her to pick up a lantern, it would have been too early. When Xiao Xiao saw Lion, he followed the sedan. And he was so young. "I'm afraid that I'm late, and it's inconvenient on the road. I have to have an older boy pick me up. The younger one is here." Jinlian asked again, "Where was your father when you came?" Ping'er said, "The younger one is here. At that time, my father was still having a drink in Liu Niang's room. After asking my father, I sent the younger one here." After hearing this, Jinlian remained silent in the sedan chair for a long time, and sneered and cursed. "Thieves, strong people. You just sent me here, as if he were dead. He just slept for a long time in the house of the whore. Tomorrow, he will only have to rely on the urine for a long time, and he will never make a mistake at noon." Zhang Chuanayer listened here, and he did in others. "You have stepped into thousands of homes, and where is a child who has just peed, using a whole silk and satin ruler to cut clothes for him to wear? Your family is Wang Shiwan, who can't do anything." Zhang Chuanayer answered. He came over and said, "If you don't tell the old man, and the little one doesn't dare to say it, you can't do this. I don't want to say it's a pity, but I'm just afraid of breaking him. The measles and acne rash haven't appeared yet, so it's so easy to support him." Last year, there is a Dazhuang village outside the East Gate. The old man is 60 years old. He lives in the future of his grandfather. There is no silver in his hand, but there are groups of cattle and horses, countless rice grains, and groups of maids and concubines. He is surrounded by robes. There were 17 or 80 of them. There was nothing to show for his son. They were fasting in the East Temple, making offerings in the West Temple, giving scriptures and giving statues. But there was no one to ask for. I didn't expect that he gave birth to a son in his 7th room. I like it very much. He is also like the head of our family. He looks at King in the palm of his hand all day long and hugs him in his beautiful nest. He bought 3 houses in the snow cave and bought 4 or 5 adoptive mothers to support him. He sees the wind all day long, no matter what. Naxia was lost because of acne when he was 3 years old. Don't blame Xiao Xiao. He was fine after being thrown away and raised. Jin Lian said. He was thrown away and raised by splashing? I wish he could be wrapped in gold all day long. Ping An said. I still have something to tell my mother. If I don't tell my mother, tomorrow my mother will find out, and she will say that I am wrong. Even the group that Mr. Han mentioned is in my father's office. He was beaten and put in prison to be sent for questioning. This morning, Yinger's father came to talk to Schrödinger. He must have received a few taels of silver. When the big bun was taken to the shop, he cut it for 2 or 3 taels. He bought it. There were many things for cooking, and he taught his daughter-in-law to take care of them in Lake Sing's house. They took them to Liu Niang's house, bought 2 bottles of Jinhua wine, and ate them with Liu Niang first. Then they went to the front shop and met with Uncle Fu and Uncle Fu. By C, brother-in-law, Dan, and Lake Sing were all ganging up, and they didn't break up until Dad came home. Jin Lian said, he won't let you eat some? Ping An said, he'll let the younger one do it. Okay, what a bold slave. He doesn't even take Niang Mei to heart. It shouldn't be too small to say that his father is used to him. He has to deal with the dirty business he does in the study first. Besides, he has been a servant in the county. What? Don't you know what happened? If Dad hadn't sent that barbarian slave away early, our whole family would have been ruined by him tomorrow. Jin Lian asked, how many times did you eat and drink in your Liu Niang's house? Ping An said, it's been a good day after eating. The younger one came out after seeing his face turn red after eating. Jin Lian said, your father came home and didn't say a word? Ping An said, that also got his teeth stuck. What are you talking about? Jin Lian scolded. You are a shameless thief and a thief. Sold his son to recruit a son-in-law? And they worked backwards and forwards. He told Ping An, when he does this dirty business with that barbarian slave again, you can come and sue me. Ping An said, Mom ordered me. I know, Mom just keeps it in her heart and doesn't mention a single word. So he followed the sedan chair until he reached the front door of his house. Pan Jinlian got off the sedan chair and went to the back first to meet Yunyang. Yunyang said, you stayed here for 1 night. And you came here in a panic. Jinlian said, my mother wants to let me stay. He also invited a 12-year-old girl from my aunt to live at home. And they were all crowded on the same Kang, who lives with him. I'm afraid someone from across the door will teach me to come. My mother will reply to my sister, thank you for the gift. Then he worshipped by Yunyang, and then went to the rooms of Li Jiar and Meng Yulu to worship them all. Returning to the front, I heard that Simon King was talking in Li Pinger's room, and came to pay homage to Li Pinger. When Li Pinger saw him coming in, she stood up quickly, welcomed him into the room with a smile, and said, Sister, I've come home early. Please sit down and have some wine. Ta Yingshun, hurry up and sit down with your 5th wife. Jin Lian said, today I drank too much. I ate on both sides of the table again and again, so I stopped sitting. After saying that, she pulled away and laughed. Simon King said, good slave. You are so bold. Why don't you worship me when you come home? Jin Lian took it and said, I worship you? You haven't been blessed yet. If a slave is not bold, who can be brave? The judge listened, said, Pan Jinlian's words clearly ridiculed Li Pinger, saying that he first had wine with Schrödinger and then accompanied Simon King. It was not a double banquet. How could Simon King know how to deal with it? Exactly. Words of affection are like needles and threads, causing right and wrong on the spot.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.